Good evening and welcome to the Township of Woolwich regular meeting of Council on December 16th, 2025. Welcome to everyone here in the chambers today and all those watching on YouTube. I'll start with a roll call of council. I'm Mayor Shantz. I'm chairing this meeting. Councillor Bryant.
Present.
Councillor
Burgess is here, just
Councillor Cadeau.
present.
Councillor Grant.
Present.
Councillor Schwind.
Present.
We should have waited for Councillor Burgess. I didn't realize he wasn't here. But that's okay. Before we start, we need to reconvene in open session. Do we have a motion to reconvene? Councillor Bryant, Councillor Grant, all those in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Yeah, so I just wanted to start by saying that I was unable to attend the Waterloo menorah lighting on Sunday as our Jewish friends and neighbors celebrate Hanukkah. Our hearts go out, to the Jewish community at the senseless attack in Australia last week. We wish everyone could feel welcome and safe in their community. In times like these, I reflect on the ongoing violence in the world, to the political instability that we in North America are experiencing in a small way compared to many parts of the world. We're not immune. I reflect on the broader angst that seems to be permeating in many ways here in Waterloo region. The world is changing. I think that's the new normal, change. We can learn to live with that. But what I hope that we don't learn to live with is the violence and hate that is seeping into our world here. We can disagree, we can discuss, but there is never any reason to hate. We have a role to play to model how to work together and embrace and respect each other, whatever our politics, our backgrounds, and our beliefs. So in this Christmas season, I wish you all joy and peace. The Christian tradition celebrates the birth of a Middle Eastern baby to a teenage girl who was given temporary housing in an outbuilding and supported by a most unlikely array of people. It speaks of hope, of faith, and belief in the power of good to prevail. So let's embrace the power of good. Let's reach out to those who are in need, smile at a stranger, and take time to connect with family and friends, whatever that looks like for you. In the good times and the difficult times, we survive and thrive through those special connections, and sometimes a smile is all it takes. So happy Hanukkah to our Jewish friends who began their celebration last weekend. Merry Christmas to our Christian friends who will be celebrating in just a bit over a week. And the best of the season, however you celebrate. Let's start with a moment of silence. Thank you. The Township of Woolwich acknowledges with deep respect that the land we call home has existed since time immemorial, long before our communities were formed and long before we arrived here. Indigenous peoples have had a deep and lasting relationship with this land, caring for it, learning from it, and living alongside all it sustains. We are grateful to the first peoples who have lived on and cared for this land and who continue to do so today. In particular, we recognize the Chinootan, also called the Attawandaron, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee people. We honor their deep connection to this land, and we acknowledge their wisdom, resilience, and leadership. These communities have protected and cared for the land with respect, responsibility, and a sense of shared trust. As we move forward, we hope to build a future based on mutual respect, shared responsibility, and stronger relationships with one another. May we continue to learn together, to care for each other, and to honor all who share this place with us. Do council members have any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we have no items to come forward from closed, but we do have some public meetings. The following portion of the meeting is for information only, and no decisions will be made tonight. Any questions can be directed to Development Services staff following the meeting. There are sign-up sheets in the lobby for anyone who wants to be kept informed on the progress of the applications or who spoke tonight. I declare the planning public meeting open, and we will start with DS 33-2025, Weber's Sugarbush Supplies, Inc. And I will call on Sherwin Melanie. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz and members of council. My name is Sherwin Melanie, and I am the planner assigned to this application. The purpose of this meeting is to provide additional information about the proposed application. The applicant, Patterson Planning Consultants, Inc., on behalf of the owner, Weber's Sugarbush Supplies, Inc., has submitted a zoning bylaw amendment application for the lands municipally known as 1217, 1219, and 1221 Lopsinger Line. The subject property is located north of Lopsinger Line and west of King Street North. The property is on private services and is approximately 1 hectare in size with a frontage of approximately 50 meters along Lopsinger Line. The property contains an existing single detached dwelling, a shed, and a vacant restaurant, which are proposed to be demolished, and an existing metal shed and carport, which are to remain. The subject lands are designated as prime agricultural, as a prime agricultural area in the township official plan, which permit agricultural related uses. Agricultural related uses are permitted only through an amendment to the township zoning bylaw. This is to ensure compatibility. Agricultural related uses are farm-related industrial commercial uses that support the agricultural land base as a primary activity. The lands are also designated within the township's protected countryside. This overlay designation identifies significant environmental features and groundwater recharge in the area that are to be permanently protected from the settlement expansion. Land uses within the protected countryside are regulated in accordance with the underlying policies for prime agricultural areas. The proposed development is considered a dry industrial / commercial agricultural related use, which is farm related. The property is currently zoned agricultural with site-specific provisions to allow a restaurant and uses accessory to a restaurant. The applicant is proposing a zone change to amend the site-specific provision to permit an agricultural-related use as an additional use. The proposed agricultural-related use is a warehouse / retail facility, which includes indoor storage, and retailing of products related to maple syrup production, apiculture, canning, and preserves, as well as the repairing of equipment utilized in maple syrup production and apiculture. The proposed area of operation includes a new warehouse and retail facility with a repair shop, a loading area, and 14 parking spaces. The applicant is also proposing to construct at the rear of the property a new single detached dwelling, a detached accessory dwelling unit, and a barn used primarily for horse transportation. These uses are permitted as of right. However, the proposed detached accessory dwelling unit requires a minimum distance separation setback reduction to the livestock facility and manure storage located at 1125 Lopsinger Line, which is approximately 240 meters away, whereas a minimum distance separation of 263 is required. The following documents, reports, and studies were submitted as part of the application. No comments from the public have been received to date. And staff will continue to work with the applicant and provide a report back to council once all concerns have been considered and addressed. And for additional information, members of the public can contact me at smelanie@woolwich.ca or at 519-669-6033. Thank you, and I'm available for any questioning.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Melanie? Councillor Cadeau.
Thanks, Mayor. Through you, it's a rather simple question. It's related to the zone change. If it's currently has a site specific of a restaurant and we are adding warehouse and retail, does that mean we would rescind the restaurant or does it stay? Does it matter?
In this case, the additional use is to be added. Could the existing provision be rescinded? I guess it could, but in this case, the applicant wanted to include as an additional use.
Anyone else? Okay, we have the consultant here and applicant representing Weber Sugarbush, Scott Patterson from Patterson Planning Consultants to speak to the application. Welcome, Mr. Patterson.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. As noted, I'm Scott Patterson, Patterson Planning Consultants, here on behalf of the property owner this evening with a brief presentation to provide some additional details for Council. Next slide, please. So Weber's Sugarbush Supplies, Inc. has been in business since 1941. They are currently located at 2844 Lobsinger Line with a St. Clements mailing address, but they're actually located just east of Heidelberg. As noted, they're a supplier of all things related to maple syrup production, apiculture, which is honey, and canning and preserves. The air photo on the screen before you with the red stars indicates all of the buildings that are currently part of that business operation. Next slide, please. So the intent is to relocate the business to the east to 1217, 1219, and 1221 Lobsinger Line, to construct a new facility including warehousing and retail sales and a small workshop. This also involves the construction of a new house, an additional residential unit for a relative, and a small barn for horses. And we are seeking a zoning bylaw amendment to permit the agricultural-related use and to reduce the minimum distance separation requirements to an abutting barn. Next slide, please. And again, just the subject property itself, it's 1 hectare in size. Next slide. So with regard to the existing property, I think if you can advance, there's an arrow that'll fly in. There's currently 4 buildings on the subject property, one being the existing restaurant, which thank you, always refer to as the Cedar Barn Restaurant. Hopefully you're familiar with that. The intent is for that to be removed. An existing single detached dwelling located at the front of the property. As a result of a regional road widening, that building will also be removed. An existing metal shed, which is of no use to the property owner and will make way for parking. And another metal shed and carport, which the proponent intends to keep, which will be used for personal use. So again, 3 of the existing buildings on site will be removed, with 1 to be remaining. And this is just a street view of the existing property, again showing the existing restaurant building, which is currently vacant, which would be removed from the site, and the existing single detached dwelling, which would also be removed. So as noted, we are seeking an amendment to the zoning. The property does have that current site-specific zoning to allow a restaurant. The restaurant applies to the entire property. So the way we've structured the application is to basically split the zoning. So the front half of the property would retain the right for the restaurant, as well as allow for the agricultural related use. For the back half of the property where the residence would be, we're asking that the restaurant permission be removed. And for the back half as well, there would also be the reduction in the minimum distance separation requirement. So just some elevations for council. This is an 11,000 square foot building floor plate with a 4,000 square foot mezzanine totaling 15,000 square feet. This is the elevation that would face towards Lobsinger Line. And again, just the other side of the building facing towards Lobsinger. The western elevation of the building. And then the back of the building. So for council's reference, just the internal workings of the building. The front of the building where I've indicated the R would be the small retail area. The area with the P would be what we call a picking area. So that's items that are unboxed and put on shelves. The landowner, the proponent would go back into that area to pick items for customers when they come to the store or to generate orders for shipment. The area indicated with the WH is the actual warehouse component of the building. The WS is a small workshop, so condensers, evaporators, things associated with maple syrup. My client actually fixes those. And then the area with the CS would just be the cold storage component of the project. So just in closing comments, the project is consistent with the provincial planning statement, conforms to the official plan, but as a requirement of your official plan, as Sherwin had noted, we do need to do a zone change for an agricultural related use just to ensure compatibility. The intent is to modify the existing zoning and permit the agricultural related use and to allow for that MDS setback reduction. And we did submit a letter of support from that affected farmer agreeing to that reduction. And going forward, should this receive approval for the zone change, site plan approval will be required from the township. So if there's any questions or concerns, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Patterson? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any unregistered participants?
Through you, Mayor Shantz, there are none.
Okay, thank you. In that case, we'll move on to the next item, which is DS 34-2025, an information report, general amendment to comprehensive zoning bylaw 26-2024, initiated by the Township of Woolwich, and I will call on Junior Planner Jonathan Delegate. You're up.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. I'm before you tonight for a public meeting, accompanied by an information report for a township general zoning bylaw housekeeping amendment. And as I was introduced, I'm Jonathan Delegate, and I was assigned to look after this housekeeping amendment. So the location of the subject properties involve all lands within the municipal boundary of the township. In addition to this, we've got two site-specific amendments that are proposed. Amendment number 16 affects 9 Shifley Place in Breslau, and number 17 affects 61 Woolwich Street North in Breslau. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is through the implementation of the zoning bylaw that was adopted last year. We identified a number of housekeeping matters, as well as 2 specific issues that we wanted to address. These issues relate to uses, regulations, zones, as well as definitions. Beyond this, some significant issues that are being addressed include accessory dwelling units, driveway widths on smaller lots, parking regulations for high-density residential and non-residential developments. I'm now going to go through the proposed changes. So proposed amendment number 1 include new measures to enforce the zoning bylaw. This was requested by the Bylaw Enforcement Division to be able to issue orders and take corrective actions at the expense of the property owner, meaning they could enforce the orders, have the work completed, and then have the cost applied to the taxes. Number 2, we've updated and added new definitions. And this was to provide clarity and consistency for the zoning bylaw. This included parking minimums in a garage, exterior landings, as well as building heights. Proposed amendment number 3, accessory dwelling units. As was presented to council in January of this year, this includes flexibility with respect to unit sizes, setbacks, and heights. And proposed amendment number 4, the clarification of buffer provisions. This was to clarify that buffers are required in certain zones when adjacent to residential, mixed-use, or agricultural zones to address the compatibility issues between various zones. Proposed amendment number 5 consists of increasing the maximum driveway widths for smaller lots. Currently, they're limited to 3.66 meters, and we are proposing to increase it to 4.6 meters to allow 2 vehicles to park next to one another. Just for clarification, smaller lots are lots of 10 meters or less in width. Proposed amendment number 6, permitting paired driveways. So we are proposing to reduce side yard setbacks to 0.6 meters to allow for paired driveways, which could lead to increased on-street parking as well. Proposed amendment number 7, exterior mechanical unit setbacks and clarifications. Here we're clarifying and expanding upon outdoor mechanical unit setbacks and their requirements. So there will be different setbacks for both ground-mounted and suspended units to address side yard drainage. Proposed amendment number 8 involves municipal servicing requirement for new lots. So all new lots serviced in serviced settlement areas such as Breslau, Elmira, St. Jacobs would be required to connect to municipal services unless a site-specific provision exempts them. Proposed amendment number 9, parking and driveway provision updates. Here we're simply clarifying that the 50% reduction in downtown areas is only applied to non-residential uses. And we're also requiring a parking lot turnaround area for parking lots that don't have an exit. Proposed amendment number 10, we're simply updating illustrations, parking illustrations to match the updated provisions in the zoning bylaw. Amendment number 11, we are increasing the farm building cluster setback and clarifying what buildings can be considered as farm buildings. So here we're seeking to create more flexibility for farmers by increasing the farm cluster setback, which is currently 30 meters, and we're proposing 50 meters to provide that flexibility, and as mentioned, clarifying the buildings that apply when looking at a farm cluster. Proposed amendment number 12, consists of permitting boarding houses. Here, we would be adding the boarding house use that was previously defined in the zoning bylaw, but not listed as a permitted use. And we would be proposing to permit it in the R3, R4, and R5 zones. Proposed amendment number 13, expanded permitted zones for industrial malls. Here we're simply expanding the zones in which industrial malls can be located. This is really just for flexibility. I believe it was an oversight that it wasn't included in the previous zoning bylaw. Proposed amendment number 14. Here we're simply amending the mapping for hazard lands. GRCA has updated their mapping, and as such, we will be updating. We're proposing to update the mapping to match the updated hazard land mapping. Proposed amendment number 15. A number of spelling, grammar, numbering, cross-references, and clarifications in the zoning bylaw were identified as needing some minor tweaks and corrections. So we'll be addressing those as well. Moving on to the site-specific changes. Proposed amendment number 16 for 9 Shifley Place. The property owner requested that additional uses be recognized on the property. And so this amendment proposes to recognize existing legal non-conforming uses. At this time, staff are presently evaluating the uses that are on the property, and we're in discussion with the property owner. And the site-specific section will be presented to council in the first quarter of next year for adoption alongside the other housekeeping amendments that were identified earlier. And proposed amendment number 17, 61 Woolwich Street North. Here we are simply correcting the zoning as the property was previously incorrectly zoned in the previous zoning bylaw, and we're simply changing it from MU3 to MU2. Comments received to date included questions regarding who the changes impacted, whether they were only new construction or all properties in the township, as well requested clarification that ADUs on non-conforming lots must still comply to environmental regulations in the zoning bylaw. There was also a request that clarification on exemptions, or rather where to find exemptions for new lots that they be serviced in Breslau, Elmira, and St. Jacobs. And lastly, a question was put forth regarding the height permissions and whether they would be changing with the zone change at 61 Woolwich Street North. And all of these questions and comments have been noted, and they'll be taken into consideration as we finalize the amending bylaw. So the purpose of this meeting, as was indicated, is simply to provide information to council and to the community. No decisions will be made at this meeting. The draft amending bylaw is available on Engage Woolwich. I believe there are also handouts available outside. A recommendation report and the final version of the draft amending bylaw will be presented to council in the first quarter of 2026. At this time, we would strongly encourage any members who wish to be kept informed and notified of future meetings that they sign in with the sign-up sheet that was also outside. If anyone has any specific questions, comments, information, or would like additional information, you're more than welcome to contact me at 519-514-6068, or my email there, jdellicolli@woolwich.ca. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Are there any questions? Councillor Burgess.
Through you, Mayor Shawns. I kind of just want to add to one of the comments and emphasize it. For the municipal servicing hookups, like we had the issue in Breslau recently, and I know in Elmira, there's roads like Eldale or High or George or other ones where if they're looking to subdivide a lot, we want to make sure they're not having to possibly pay to bring the servicing all the way down to their location. That could be a large cost. So just, yeah, make sure there's clarity on what's involved for that, but also happy to see that, yeah, for development, that'll be put in there for future projects, that it won't be a surprise for residents.
Anything else? No? Hey, thanks, Jonathan. We do have one participant for this item, Mr. Ted Dietrich, to speak on the item. Welcome, Mr. Dietrich. Yep, perfect.
Good evening, thank you. Good evening, everyone in attendance, and also to those of you watching at home. My name is Ted Dietrich, and I'm speaking here tonight to represent my parents, Sandra and Ted Dietrich Sr., regarding the special section that would apply to 9 Scheifel Place in Breslau, which would be part of the amending housekeeping document. To give you a little history of who we are, my mother, Sandra, was born and raised in Woolwich Township. After marrying my father, and they purchased their first home together in Woolwich Township in 1984, where they lived, and I was born and raised alongside my sisters until 1997. While living in the township, Ted and Sandra were looking to plant the roots even deeper, and in 1993, they purchased a unique property in Breslau, not far from where they lived at the time, and that was called Mill Street at that time. This is the property I'm here to talk about tonight. They purchased 9 Scheifel Place specifically because it was Zone C3, which allowed a wide range of commercial and industrial uses. And this would allow future business activities to be conducted legally within their home township. Over the last nearly 33 years, they invested lots of time, money, blood, sweat, and tears into that property. When they purchased the property, it was in very poor condition. It was quite a mess. While many others may have torn down the original buildings, built a large shop, warehouse, or maybe strip mall, my parents chose to restore and revitalize the existing buildings. I still have memories of walking there some days after to see my father after I'd completed my day at Breslau Public School. Throughout the years, my parents have owned that property. They've strived to ensure the property was always kept as neat and tidy as possible, despite its many different commercial uses. It's come such a long way, and we're quite sure that if Rudolf Hanuski, who was the original blacksmith that likely built those original buildings in the 1900s, was still around, he would be happy to see them still in use today. Where the issue currently lies is that in August 2024, we were very shocked and surprised to learn that our property had been rezoned from C3 to MU2. We immediately got in contact with township staff. This new MU zoning that was assigned to the property unfortunately made almost every use the property had in the past and present no longer legal, even down to the house located on the property. What that means in simple terms is that if any part of the property were not to be used for a term greater than 12 months, then it would no longer be usable for anything. This would force us or a future owner to tear down all the existing buildings and try and build a new, larger building despite all the constraints the property has, such as no water or sanitary services available or even planned, Grand River conservation restrictions on parts of the property, and also the setbacks from the railway behind. An example of the building that the township would like to see on that south side of Scheifel Place would be a 52-foot tall apartment building with a minimum width of 70% of the street floor frontage on the property. That would equate to a building that would be at least 120 feet wide, and it would have stores and shops lining the street front. That building would likely have approximately 30 to 35 units. This would make that street a very busy and noisy place, even after the years of construction would be completed. In speaking with a few of the neighbors who have learned to love and appreciate the quietness and peacefulness of the street, we truly believe that a structure of that kind would not be appreciated. While we are not against changing growth in the appropriate places within the township, we do not currently have the desire to undertake such a development and would like for the property and street to be recognized as it has been for a very long time. Last February, we attended and registered to speak at the council meeting regarding the future Breslau urban expansion and land use, but township staff reached out to us in advance of the meeting and informed us that it would be best taken care of through a special section for our property, and there was no need to speak at that meeting. Planning staff were hoping to not jeopardize the council voting yes, given the time crunch they were under for approval from the province. We honored that request and trusted that it would be taken care of in a respectful and timely manner. While we have been quiet and patient for the last year and a half, as we've tried to work through this issue with township staff, we need to have this resolved soon. What we are asking of the township staff and council here tonight is to please be reasonable with us in regards to recognizing the uses on the property so that we can continue using it legally as we have been doing for the last 33 years. If anyone has any questions or would like to speak with us, please feel free to ask. We'd be happy to discuss them. Thank you for your time and attention.
Are there questions for Mr. Dietrich?
No, for Jonathan.
Okay. Anything from Mr. Dietrich? No. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll go back to questions for Jonathan, then Councillor Bryant.
Thank you. Through you to Jonathan. What was the reasoning for changing his zoning from commercial to MU2 or 3?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Bryant. So the original reason for the zone change was because the property immediately adjacent to the east, up to Woolwich Street, and the other side of Woolwich Street is transitioning to the downtown core of Breslau. And because it's immediately adjacent to the future downtown core of Breslau, it was deemed that it should be more of a mixed use type of zoning, as to not have conflicting zoning or conflicting uses with downtown core. In other words, trying to avoid, say, a very loud industrial use next to a downtown use.
So if I may, so does this affect his commercial zoning on the property? Like if he wants to stay there and run his commercial, can he do that? Or are you taking that ability away from him?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Bryant, he is permitted to keep the uses that are currently there that were legally existing under the previous zoning.
So if the building sits empty for 12 months, he loses that zoning?
If the building if the building does sit empty for 12 months, the grandfathering clause would expire and he would lose that permitted use, which is why there's a provision under the official plan that allows us to recognize existing uses. And that's why we're working with him to recognize those legal non-conforming uses currently in the zoning bylaw, which would ensure that after 12 months, he can still continue to operate those uses.
Okay, so this is coming back to us, I guess, early 2026, is it, for more discussion?
Correct.
'Cause I'd like more details on this. Thank you.
Mr. Scarfo.
Just to provide some background, in 2017, when we did the Breslau secondary plan, that's when we re-examined Breslau because it was designated in the regional plan as urban area. So it's going to be a much larger, greater built form and density. So through that exercise, we looked at that area and we were trying to contemplate where the downtown would be, and that would be along Main Street, Willett Street, and in the periphery would be those mixed uses, similar to what you see in Elmira. So new land use designations were applied to those lands, and it was a mixed use land designation. So that in 2024, when we were catching up with our zoning bylaw, we had to develop a zoning that would conform with the land use designations decisions that we made in 2017. The purpose of this exercise for the housekeeping is in conferring with the property owners, they would like to see existing uses on the property to remain. And we can facilitate that in our official plan through our existing use policies. And so we are working with the owners to identify those uses, and those uses would be recognized as a site-specific or an additional use over and above what would be allowed in the MU2 zone. And we're working with them to come to an agreement and present that next year at when this is going to council for recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Cadeau.
Thanks, Mayor. Through you, when a site-specific thing is put on, for lack of a better word, sorry, when the property is sold, that remains, or would that expire? It remains. Grandfathering, though, if we were to switch this and the property was sold, the grandfathering would end, right?
Any sort of site-specific that it's added to the zoning is additional uses that is allowed over and above what the general zoning category like. So it remains with the property regardless of ownership changes or tenant, or if they don't even use it, that use remains.
Anyone else? Okay. Are there any unregistered speakers?
Through you, Mayor Shantz, there are no unregistered speakers, but could also ask the gallery if there's anyone that wants to speak to this.
Is there anyone in the gallery? No? Sure.
Thank you. And then was it Councillor Cadeau that had the question about the grandfather versus the site-specific use? Is that right? So in either case, and maybe John can confirm this, but I believe that even a grandfathered clause would also transfer over with a property change. Is that right, John?
If something is legal non-conforming, meaning it's legal to continue to exist, it can transfer over as long as it doesn't cease for more than a year. What we're trying to do with this amendment is to recognize it as an additional use over and above what is allowed in the MU2 zone. So that would stay with the property.
Right, okay. I just wanted to confirm that that was understood, that it was, in that sense, the grandfather would be the same as a site-specific, and that the new owner could potentially take that on as long as there was not that gap. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So if there are no further speakers, then I'll declare the planning public meeting to be closed. Thank you, everyone, for that. We have one delegation on the agenda tonight, so please keep to the time limit posted on the agenda. There will be a timer on the screen, and you will hear a warning sound when you have 1 minute left, and again when your time is up. Once you're finished, you can turn your mic off and video. All are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, and they've left anyway, or leave when you wish. So tonight we will hear from Justin Durrer virtually on the sidewalk snow clearing in Elmira. Mr. Durrer?
Good evening, Mayor Shantz and Council. I just want to say thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to begin by acknowledging the challenges that come with snow clearing. I know in southwestern Ontario, winters are unpredictable and snowfalls can be relentless. And along with that, equipment and staffing are often stretched pretty thin. I know, in saying that, I know the town works hard to keep our streets and sidewalks safe and accessible, and that these decisions involve balancing budgets, contracts, and community needs. I also want to recognize the work of previous contractors over the past 10 plus years. We had a local contractor and he handled sidewalks, and it seemed to be at a reasonable cost, although I'm sure they didn't think so. And while there were occasional complaints, like everything, some valid, some not, overall, I think the community was somewhat pleased with the provided level of service. And we came kind of to rely and expect that level of service. Their familiarity with our community, our downtown, and our residents made a difference in how efficiently and effectively the snow clearing was done. This season, however, has been very different. After the major snowfall at the end of November, just some reports that I've seen and personal observation, I would say maybe like 30% of the sidewalks were cleared. And I know the first snowfall was uncharacteristic for the first snowfall, and with a new contractor it would raise challenges. In saying that, in following weeks, many sidewalks are still left untouched, and the base on a lot of the sidewalks is 4 to 5 inches in some spots. Many of the crosswalks and intersections have been left untouched for weeks, leaving them rock hard or shoveled in unless residents have cleared them. I know the weather and operator fatigue and equipment challenges are all understandable. However, like after, a certain amount of time, I'd expect that all areas have been cleared. And another thing I just wanted to mention was the downtown. I noticed like after a major snowfall, we had quite a buildup down there, and I was down for like the Moonlight Madness event, and it was pretty nuts. There was like 2 to 3 foot drifts downtown, and people crawling all over the place, and kids and strollers, and there was a lot of events by the library and the tree lighting and stuff like that, and a lot of people were just kind of crossing the road and hanging out on the road just because you couldn't really traverse the sidewalk. And then saying that too, the next day we had our Christmas parade, and I thought maybe that would have been cleaned up for that, but like again, it was still like a 2 to 3 foot, in spots downtown. I think it's still like that in most spots. So in saying that, these aren't like 1 day issues, like these are conditions that persisted for over a week or more, long after initial snowfalls. And I just think the businesses and residents are expressing concern because it affects foot traffic and accessibility. So families with young children, elderly residents, and those with mobility challenges are really impacted. Um, and I guess another point that kind of that what got me the most interested in this, I noticed like our taxes have been going up a lot in the last couple years and again this year. So like with that being said, naturally like some residents are going to have their back up when essential services fail, especially ones that directly affect the safety and accessibility. It's just concerning like when we pay for like a contracted service, like I know things happen, but it seems like it's the Wild West when it comes to these sidewalks, and it's just kind of however they can do it or whatever they can do is kind of good enough. And it seems like it's just a lot of people are frustrated because I know like costs are increasing like with everything, but just the level of care and like the sloppiness of it is just pretty evident throughout. So I just, as residents, like, we take pride in our town, especially our downtown, which is the heart of our community. So like these situations just raise some important questions that I hope, we as collectively or as a council can address. So I was just wondering personally, like what steps can be taken to ensure that contracted snow clearing meets the needs of residents and downtown businesses? Are there any measures we can implement to monitor performance or to ensure accountability for future seasons? And could we come up with a contingency plan or periods of heavy snowfall, or a performance guarantee be included in a future contract? I know like the region or the city of Kitchener, they have something like, where there's like levels of service, and if the contractor can't meet it, then there's like a, series of events that happens, and it's just to mitigate the problem. We all share. Oh, and then I guess the other thing I just want to know too, do we even have a policy for clearing out downtown or like the embankments on sidewalks? Like coming into the Christmas season, that'd be something I'd feel it's pretty important. We want people coming into our town. We want them spending money. We want our businesses to thrive. Um, and saying that we all share the same goal. We want accessible sidewalks. I'm not trying to like assign blame or point fingers. I'm just trying to make sure our community and the services we pay for reflect the standards we expect and deserve. And I also hope council will consider ways to balance cost with quality so that we are getting our best value. I know it's challenging. I know we only had one person submit a bid, but like we knew this was going to be a big undertaking. And I feel like we just kind of like let the problems happen before we're trying to be proactive with any of them. So I'd just like to say thank you for taking the time to hear my perspective. I hope we can work together to keep our town safe, accessible, and inviting for everyone, residents, visitors, family, businesses alike, and especially during the busiest snowfalls of the year. So I look forward to council's thoughts on how we can improve snow clearing, ensure that taxpayer dollars are providing the value and safety we expect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durrer. Are there questions? Councillor Burgess.
Through you, Mayor Shantz, I just want to say thanks a lot for coming and raising your concerns. We always appreciate hearing from the public. So thanks a lot for representing the community here. And yeah, if no one else has questions, then we can kind of discuss this topic.
Sure. I wonder, Mr. Poupet, if you wanted to speak to anything that the delegate presented.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Shantz, to council. First off, I think I want to appreciate some of the frustrations the residents of Elmira are experiencing with respect to the sidewalk snow clearing program. I think there were some really valid takeaways there, some things that we can update council on as well. I think it's important to unpack the history. We've had a consistent contractor here for about 15 years. This is not without its complaints and concerns. There's no question about it. But that contractor certainly had systemic knowledge of the network. I think it is important to acknowledge that in about November 27th, for about 4 days straight, we had a pretty significant event occur. We had a new contractor without that systemic knowledge. And it is also acknowledged that there were some, there was not a lot of preparatory work going out staking. That was acknowledged. So not only did we get significant snowfalls, and it's always a battle with road clearing operations and sidewalk clearing operations, certainly when the sidewalks are close. So that has always been a challenge in winter. Every winter event is different. I think that's important for the public to understand too, that one snowfall event isn't like another snowfall event. But we did have some constructive meetings with the contractor this week. We have acknowledged that there are areas that still have not been touched, and that is looked to be rectified. Some of the important takeaways here are we had some pretty significant temperature set in as well. That did not help the situations for areas that had not been touched. So they had applied product. They also experienced some pretty significant mechanical failures. We don't have the proper equipment in town currently. So that's something that they're looking to address as well. We are counting on some warmer weather this week, Wednesday, Thursday, to get a bit of a reset. They have committed to doing a good job. So it's not for lack of trying. I think at times when we see certain things like piles of material sitting up, they weren't able to utilize their supervisory routes like they were supposed to. Typically what the program does, it assigns 3 routes to 3 pieces of equipment, and then there is a supervisory truck that goes around and starts doing the inspections and so forth. Unfortunately, with the mechanical failures, that supervisory role turned into a bit of a shuttling material back and forth and dealing with breakdown. So it is a series of unfortunate events. That's as best as we can say. And I think it is important that we provide a little bit of patience here. And with the warmer thaw, we are not expecting to be in the same situation in a week's time. So all of this is acknowledged, and do appreciate that frustration. I think it is important to understand as well that there was only one bidder. And that the price was quite a bit more. It is about $80 now roughly per person, as opposed to the $55 previously. So do appreciate all of those concerns raised by the delegate, and I'm sure many of the public that have not spoke tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Rebate. I just wanted to direct council's attention to the fact that we have a written submission included in our agenda from Mrs. Katie Boos. And then you can refer to that in your agenda item, and it will be found in the revised agenda published on our website. Was there any other questions regarding this matter? Yes, the pictures, I believe, will also be included in the revised package. Councillor Cadeau.
And council did receive a copy of the pictures, and it's very obvious what the concerns are, I'll add. So just for that, to Mr. Durrer, thank you for that delegation. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. I guess the question is for staff. The delegate did ask a number of questions, so you did a really good job in answering them, I think. I just wanted to focus on one, and it's, how are we going to work with the contractor on a day-to-day basis to monitor the performance and make any adjustments that we may need after these snow events?
Yeah, through Chair Grant to Councillor Cadeau. Yeah, so part of that was communication. Obviously, we got hit right away. There were some challenges. We've all acknowledged roles and responsibilities there. Again, there was a very good meeting early in the week. We are expecting communication to improve as well, so that we can certainly communicate and look to support and help. Excuse me, they are addressing their mechanical breakdown, so we fully expect the full fleet back in town too. And then monitoring, that's the whole program really. So we're aware, we've been driving around, we've notified areas. There were some mapping issues originally in the tender, and they're contracted and start till November 15th. So I think that's another piece of that. But again, everything sort of happened quickly, and I think we need to acknowledge that and do better going forward. And that was the message conveyed by both parties, by the contractor. They acknowledged they need to do better. We've acknowledged that we'll support them where we can. And we're going kind of looking for a reset later this week. And again, we're not expecting to find ourselves in the same situation. So a little bit more patience we're asking the public for, and hopefully we're have a successful program going forward here. But significant changes, obviously, when you're used to one particular contractor, and that changes.
Councillor Burgess.
Through you to Director Poupé. Yeah, I use these sidewalks every day, so we and Councillor Cadeau and others do too. We have a vested interest in getting this resolved as much and as quickly as you do here, and we're trying our best. But one question I don't think was addressed, unless I missed it there, was I think he was talking about the big piles of snow downtown in the parking lots and that, if you had a timeline or the plan around clearing those out.
Through Chair Grant to Councillor Burgess, the downtown is plowed by the Region of Waterloo forces. So Church Street regional road corridors are not plowed by township staff. So it would be a sidewalk issue, obviously, there. I can't comment there. I haven't walked recently downtown, but if we're saying that there was sidewalk snow that was not cleared there, or was this just a battle between road clearing operations and sidewalk clearing operations? I guess I'm not clear on what the concern exactly happened downtown. Sorry, the parking lots? Okay. Sure. I guess at the end of the day, we're looking to improve in all areas there. We can certainly report back and monitor that. There's always been challenges though with plow operations and sidewalk clearing, is certainly when you have what's called curb face sidewalk, where sidewalk is directly adjacent to the road. So those issues we know have occurred again, some of those challenges, but I think what we're asking is just a little bit of patience to get us caught up. Again, with the melt, I think we're putting a lot of eggs in that basket and hoping to move forward and do better here with a bit of a reset.
Councillor Cadeau?
Everybody's looking forward to that reset. In the meantime, or I guess even afterwards, if there are still concerns with the level of service, how is the best way for residents to go about contacting, the township staff, the contractor, council? Like, what is the best or recommended route?
Yeah, through you, Chair Grant to Councillor Cadeau, our website has a location available where anyone can weigh on various, there's winter control complaints or anything. We would recommend that. That goes directly to staff. Every single one of those are received. There may not be a response to everyone, as some of those are addressed well even before we've had a chance to deal with it. So I just want the public to understand that. If there is a snow event occurring though, we do have 24 hours after the cessation of the event, meaning after the event stops, to clear. So we would appreciate that during an event to sort of hold those complaints and comments back until the event has stopped, and then there is a time frame for which for us to address. But I think we appreciate the attention that the Elmira Sidewalk Snow Clearing Program has received, and obviously looking to move better. So there should be an improvement seen by all moving forward.
Thank you. Councillor Schwint?
Thanks. Yeah, I can appreciate winter came early and hard this year, and we have to make allowances for that. Just looking forward, it snowed last time. Township staff gave us as council a quick update throughout the event, what's going on. This is a hot button topic for all of us here at the table, so wondering if that could be part of the process too, if we happen to get more snow over the holidays. Just give us a report on how things are going and what staff have observed.
Yeah, through you, Chair Grant to Councillor Schwint. So that would be the intent. I think what people need to appreciate too is if an event or a significant event is declared, we can certainly get out in front of that because we will be clearing that ahead. Sometimes during an event, it's not as easy for staff who are attending to maybe do that, but we certainly endeavor to communicate as much as we can with any foreseen issues. But their winter is very different, and I think that's very important for everybody to understand. Is not every event is treated the same way. So, we will do the best we can as far as communication goes. Is probably the best I can offer right now. I don't want to set ourselves up for failure if we are in the midst of an event and all hands are on deck. Is all I'm trying to explain.
Thank you. Councillor Cadeau?
Lots of questions. The delegate also asked about level of service / policy. So I think that there's two parts to the question here. First is, does the township have a policy around snow clearing? I imagine we do for people outside of Elmira, because Elmira is the only town that has this service. And then second is, how is the level of service described in the contract? And I don't want you to get into detail, but I think what the resident was asking is, are we expected to see bare sidewalk throughout the winter? Is there a small, layer of snow? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, through Chair Grant to Councillor Cadeau. There are thresholds in the sidewalk snow clearing program. I'm not sure if it's 25, I believe it's about 25 mils thereabouts, but I don't think that should be an expectation of anybody to see bare sidewalk. I think what is happening now though, and why the melt will help with a reset, is that there has been a lot of product applied. Salt doesn't work at all temperatures. It needs a bit of a warmer piece around -7 degrees thereabouts, that salt and rising salt will work. So that has been applied. So that is still sitting there active on some of those locations, which will help hopefully to get to see some of that sidewalk, but I don't think that's fair to expect always to see bare sidewalk absolutely everywhere. Sand can be applied. That is a good traction as well on top of snow. And then just regarding roads, we look to comply with minimum maintenance standards, and it's likely that most municipalities, certainly in the region of Waterloo, exceed those standards and typically deploy resources well ahead of the required the requirements in that legislation.
Is there any further discussion on this topic? All right. Seeing none, we can move on to our consent items. We have 5 consent items for approval. Do any member of council wish to remove anything for discussion? If not, is anyone like to motion to approve all items? Motion from Councillor Bryant. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cadeau. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We have nothing on unfinished business, but we do have some council business. Our first item is I'll call upon Economic Development and Tourism Officer Curtis Wells to present the MAT request for 2026 Ontario Curling Championship and the 2025 Elmira Maple Syrup Festival. You can begin when you are ready.
Good evening, Chair and Council, and thank you for the opportunity to present Report A07-2025. In March 2025, Council approved the Municipal Accommodation Tax, otherwise known as MAT, administration policy, which outlines how MAT revenues can be allocated and provides clear guidelines for how Woolwich can strategically reinvest in the tourism industry. This year has been impactful with several key projects enhancing the the visitor experience across the township. Between the 2025 annual MAT allocation approved by Council and the in-year requests approved either by Council or by SMT under the $10,000 threshold, just over $500,000 in funding has been approved. Of that amount, we are projecting that a maximum of just under $375,000 will be actually spent. The difference is primarily due to a few larger projects being put on hold in 2025 for various reasons. The projected maximum spend of $375,000 includes the 2 requests before Council this evening. Should that full amount be spent, the MAT Reserve Fund would hold a balance of $743,901.77, not including 2025 MAT revenues as they are still being collected. This positions the township strongly for 2026 and future tourism investment. This report includes 2 funding requests. One, an additional $15,000 contribution to the 2026 Ontario Curling Championships for the temporary removal and reinstallation of glass panels surrounding the ice surface. And the second, $11,115.01 to support Township of Woolwich costs for service levels above and beyond what is normally provided to special events for the Elmira Maple Syrup Festival. The 2026 Ontario Curling Championships will take place from January 4th to 11th at the Woolwich Memorial Centre. The event is expected to draw more than 10,000 spectators from across Ontario and beyond, generating an estimated $1.4 million in economic impact. This tournament is a significant win for the township and will attract both new and returning visitors while showcasing the destinations and experiences Woolwich has to offer. As a note to Council, the senior management team has already approved $5,000 in support for the championships earlier this year. With Council approval of the request before you tonight, the total contribution would be $20,000. From a sport hosting and event hosting perspective, supporting large-scale events like this enhances visitor experience, demonstrates Woolwich's capacity as a strong host community, and helps attract future events. This request aligns with the event support and development and the tourism infrastructure enhancement priorities within the MAT administration policy. The second request relates to the 2025 Elmira Maple Syrup Festival, a long-standing and reputable event that has taken place in Elmira since 1965. The festival welcomed more than 55,000 attendees on April 5th, generating significant economic impact and visitor impact for Woolwich. The festival board works closely with vendors and local businesses to highlight the many offerings across the township. Given the scale of the event, township staff regularly provide support that exceeds the standard level of service for special events. This ranges from pre-event coordination and setup to bylaw enforcement, infrastructure work, waste collection, and additional material and equipment usage. To meet the needs of the festival board for 2025, staff delivered exceptional customer service that required dedicated time and resources beyond typical service levels. The festival is an important part of Elmira's history and generates accommodation stays, restaurant visits, and other economic benefits. Continued strong support from the township contributes to positive visitor experiences and enables the festival and businesses who benefit from it to continue growing. This request aligns with the event support and development priority within the BAT administration policy. Thank you again for the opportunity to present, and I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you. Does council have any questions? Councillor Schmidt?
Just to clarify from Elmira Maple Syrup, this is for last year's festival?
Through the chair to the council, yes, that is for 2025. So this current year.
And will there be a corresponding request for 2026?
So we are working a request in that'll be included in the annual allocation of funding on a go-forward basis. So now that we've kind of understood what that level of service is, we're going to be working that into an annual allocation of funding request for 2026.
Councillor Cadeau?
Thanks, Chair Grant, through you. For the first one, the 15,000 for the Ontario Curling Championship, well, I guess for both, did these requests come directly from the proponents, I guess, I'm really struggling with my English today. Did you craft these? Did they come from the community, I guess?
So the request for the Ontario Curling Championships came through the RCS. And then for the Elmira Maple Syrup Festival, that is through staff departments, given the level of service that was delivered in excess of what would be delivered for a normal standard of service.
Any other questions? Councillor Schmidt?
So following up on Councillor Cadeau's comment, that 11,000, we have spent that money in 2024 as well? And we're just reallocating budget source of the funds? Or is this new activity in 25 versus previous years?
Mr. Brenneman?
So let me deal with the realities of both requests through you, Madam Chair. So with respect to the Elmira Maple Syrup Festival, getting right down to the reality of how things are with festivals and events, one of the things that I've seen over the years is the fact that both with area municipalities in the region, they've been reevaluating the amount of support and effort that they provide festivals and events with respect to road closures, barricades, things of that nature. And in fact, there has been a movement to ask the festival and event suppliers to pick up a lot of these extraordinary costs. And there's been a movement towards that. As a township, what we've tried to look at is that there are certain key festivals and events, et cetera, that ultimately we have traditionally supported over and above the normal service level. And we feel that it's important to continue to do that, especially as well with the Elmira Maple Syrup Festival, because I personally have had ongoing discussions with the region about their role in terms of some of these requirements with the Elmira Maple Syrup Festival. And I have suggested to them that they, while they have looked at maybe transferring a lot of these responsibilities onto the volunteer committee known as the Elmira Maple Syrup Committee, they also get a share of the MAT tax, and that would be a way to support this group because they do yeoman's work at the end of the day, and all the money goes back into the community. And at the end of the day, this particular festival does draw a lot of tourists into the area. Ultimately, I think there's a benefit, from the use of the MAT tax. And historically, Councillor Schmidt, have we had the ability to use something like MAT? No, we haven't. But I think this is a philosophical thing as well going forward about having the MAT tax will allow us to support key festivals and events that have a direct and indirect economic development and tourism benefit to that. Just in the absence of having a director of recreation, I do have some intimate knowledge about the Ontario Curling Championships. Certainly one of the things that evolved through the discussions was, again, the costs that the group would be responsible for. And we also did and were provided with information about cost comparisons in other jurisdictions that have hosted these types of championships. So that caused us to reevaluate whether the 5,000 we had previously provided was sufficient, recognizing the temporary removal and reinstallation of the glass panels and those costs are very extensive. And so to that end, when we look at, again, the direct and indirect economic development and tourism benefit of the Ontario Curling Championships, we thought we owed it to the group to come to council and recommend that we up the amount of money that we're supporting there. Because at the end of the day too, I'll say this, I think we're looking at the long game. We certainly hope there's a future. We're having many more championships. And I can tell you from my role on the Regional Tourism Board, sports tourism is a competitive field. And if we don't support to a certain level, these types of championships will go elsewhere. So I wanted to give a little bit of history there to help with some context and background.
Councillor Schmidt.
Yeah, no, I guess my point is I do want to support these events, and removing glasses, all that makes sense. I was just trying to wonder, we're spending that money in the past, in which case there's some more money available in the RCS budget going forward that was spent previous years in other ways.
Marie?
Through you, Chair Grant, to Councillor Schwint. So previous in 2019, we assumed the cost of the glass removal, which impacted drastically on the RCS budget.
Any other items? Councillor Cadeau?
Sorry, I'm trying to come up with the question on the fly here. It's probably not going to end well. If we say we're to not approve the 15 for the curling championship, does that mean the glass panels are going to remain for the entire duration of the tournament, or would they come down just by somebody else paying for them? And I'm not suggesting that I don't support it. I'm kind of with Councillor Schwint in that, you know, it does make sense. You don't have to worry about curling rocks flying out of the rink like you do with hockey, so I get it. I'm just wondering, can you answer that question?
I see Mr. Vanderhoff is coming online.
Able to jump in as well too, through you, Chair, to Councillor Cadeau. So provided that the event is right at the start of the new year, another option that could be considered, but one that would have an impact on the 2026 budget, is the township funding this through minor capital or other means, whether that's a levy impact. As Mr. Brenneman did mention, the request did really truly come through the curling club when they spoke with Curling Ontario and just kind of looked at what others are doing that have hosted the event in the last 3 years since the township hosted it. The cost for the glass in 2019 was a bit of a surprise for us, and that cost has increased, I believe, upwards of 3 times the price in 2019. We did obtain 2 quotes to carry out the work as well too, with us recommending this funding to support the lowest bid. So to answer your question, it's something that we feel is important for the event, for viewers. We could look at other sources of funding, but that would need to come through council approval to the 2026 budget, and it would kind of be after the fact at that point as well too.
So the glass is coming down is what I'm hearing based on that. So thanks. When was the last time we removed the glass from the Snyder rink? I'm just being cautious. If we take all of that glass down, you know, would there be damage that we would have to deal with? And is it going to delay, you know, returning the glass to its proper order, which would delay our minor sports and everything else? Have we ever taken it down?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Cadeau. So we took it, last time we took it down was in 2019 for the curling event. And we did deal with some headaches after that for a couple of years. That being said, we have a different contractor that's doing the work this time around. It's only an 80% removal, so we're just removing the sides, not the ends. And we met with the contractor last week to discuss logistics. They would take it out within an 8-hour span and then put it back in within an 8-hour span as well too. And we have staff have scheduled appropriate time buffer around the event to make sure that we're good to jump right back into regular programming.
Thanks for that. I'll move the recommendations.
Seconded by Councillor Schwint. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Our next item, we have the Director of Infrastructure Services, Jared Poupet, here to speak about the municipal servicing extension for 94, 98, and 106 Church Street West in Elmira.
Thank you, Chair Grant, and through you, the members of council. This is a special service levy assessment that was initiated by the residents. So as in typical fashion, then a survey is sent out to those potential benefiting properties. In this case, there was only 3 properties. The survey results came back unanimously in favor of a special service levy assessment. The estimated costs range anywhere between $45,000 to $55,000. I think that's important to understand. This is to provide both wastewater and water servicing to 3 properties. Appreciating the sensitivity around special service levies as of late, I think it's important to understand that this is a tool in the Municipal Act, Section 326. It is there for a few reasons. One, namely, is that if there were unsafe situations with respect to private servicing, this is an order that the province can levy upon a municipality, and this is how rate utilities would be extended. Though water and sewer both rate supported, this would be a method for extending those under those circumstances. The township has looked to use this to extend servicing in areas and typically look to garner a majority. In this case, again, unanimous. So I think council also had requested that there be some form of process provided for council's consideration. So we look to bring that back to council. That would be both a joint initiative between our department and finance, that we could lay out that process. Again, I think the process in this most recent one was proper. The breakdown was in communication. So I think that'll be key, is to identify critical milestones throughout that process with respect to communication to those involved in a special service levy, understanding that there may be some, because you wouldn't typically get a unanimous vote. So we appreciate there would be some would be opposed, and obviously they would like to understand that where that process is. So that is contained in the report. This report is just seeking council's endorsement so that we can move forward in that process to do detailed design and then move forward to construction. All costs are borne by the benefiting properties, and then the bylaw would be levied thereafter. The intent here would be the construction would occur in 2026, and the levying bylaw would likely be applied the same year, later in the year. So whether Q3 or Q4 of 2026. So in this instance, things would happen fairly succinctly. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Councillor Burgess.
Through you, Chair, a couple questions. I guess firstly, this is a main road. Why did the region not put this service in?
Yeah, through you, Chair Grant, to Councillor Burgess. So while this is a regionally controlled corridor, the township in this instance owns the water and wastewater servicing. At the time, it was not elected to move forward with a special service levy. So it wasn't provided. There's likely some cost decisions there. Appreciating that the township has in past practice provided servicing and then looked to recover costs many years later. Those there are some historical roadways like that where the township had just simply expanded servicing and looked to recover later. This is probably in a bit of a transitionary period. Since those times, though, we have looked to just extend services through special service levy. This was just one of those unfortunate situations where servicing wasn't extended for the 3 properties at the time, and here we are today dealing with it.
Councillor Burgess.
Yeah, just another one here. As you commented, it looks like all 3 are in agreement, which is great to hear. Just reading the letter there that was provided, I just want to clarify, or I guess make sure that they realize that there is an extra cost that they have to bear to hook up once the service is provided. And just want to make sure that was made clear.
Through you, Chair Grant, to Councillor Burgess. Yes, so we had meetings with the original proponent of the service levy. They were very clear in that. The letter was very clear in that the cost would be borne. There would still be that amortization option as well at a defined interest rate, which would be brought forward at the time of the levying bylaw. So I think that was made very clear to all who were benefiting from this potential service extension.
Yeah, that there's a 2 costs, we'll get it in and then to run it to their house on top of that. And I guess lastly, you mentioned you're going to bring it back to council on a plan on how to treat these special service levies. But I guess in the short term, if something like this proceeds, will there be a notice on the property or something that if there is a sale of the house, for example, that the new owners will know about this, just so we don't have another incident?
Yeah, good question. Short answer is there is nothing that is on title through this process until the bylaw is enacted. So you do have a bit of a window opportunity if somebody was to jump ship here potentially. But we do get calls frequently from realtors. That is on the purchasers, due diligence to reach out. We would certainly encourage anybody to reach out to the township. There's no harm in doing that and seeking some of these answers out. But it would not be on title. It would just be through a levying bylaw that would be applied to the tax roll once that is enacted by council at a future date.
I guess just to follow up, so if they called in, you guys would have a note on file that you could, in that due diligence, be able to answer that?
Through your chair, Grant. Yes, we can note it on the file. It's a little tricky because it's not kind of in your face flagged, but yes, we certainly can note it on their tax roll that it is a potential pending bylaw amortization, whichever the option they choose. Yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none, there is a recommendation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Burgess and a seconder, Councillor Cadeau. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We have bylaws listed on the agenda. Do I have a mover and a seconder to pass these bylaws? Councillor Cadeau, Councillor Bryant, all those in favor? And that's carried. This does bring us to the end of the council section of the meeting, and we will be moving into committee of the whole. Do we need a 5-minute break? I'm sharing the next part, so I don't need a break if we're okay to keep going. Yes, we can. So maybe we'll take a quick, 2-minute break or something. right, we are back for the Committee of the Whole for items that require more debate and discussion. We will not be making any final decision on these items, but proposing recommendations for next council meeting. If anyone in the community has feedback on these recommendations, we encourage you to reach out to staff or submit comments to council before a final decision is made at the next meeting. Our first item is the fees and charges ICE user rates. We have Manager of Operations and Projects, Recreation and Community Services, Thomas Vanderhoff, or I'm guessing Marie, maybe?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Council. This report brings forward a proposed adjustment to ICE user rates for the 2026-2027 season, recommending a 6% increase while maintaining the 33.5 subsidy for affiliated ICE user groups. Council will recall that the ICE rates were endorsed on a 4-year term from 2023 to 2027, including a pre-approved 2% increase for 2026. At the time, staff noted that those increases would not fully keep pace with the rising costs such as utilities and wages and facility and maintenance, but were structured to support user groups as they recovered from the pandemic. As part of Council's direction for the 2026 fees and charges review, staff met with all affiliated ICE user group representatives, so the girls, the boys, hockey, as well as Sunrays and Woolwich Thrashers. We presented several rate scenarios and discussed affordability, impacts on minor sport organizations, and long-term participation. We also completed a comparison with surrounding municipalities, which is found in Table A of the report. That review confirmed that Woolwich's ICE rates remain slightly below the average of surrounding townships, and that our 33.5% subsidy is consistent with that of comparable municipalities within the region. The feedback from user groups was constructive. While there was an understanding of increasing the ICE costs, there was concerns about increasing ICE costs and reducing the subsidy, as this would have a large impact on the sport organization as itself. To align with the municipalities that are near to us, it would be a 5.4% increase. Through a collaboration, a consensus was reached to move from the previous approved 2% increase to a 6% increase while maintaining the subsidy. This approach improved cost recovery, keeping the rates within the regional average and minimizing the impacts on the user groups. Financially, the 6% increase would generate approximately $98,000 annually compared to about $33,000 under a 2% increase, with a partial year benefit of roughly $30,000 in 2026. Overall, staff feel that this is a balanced approach that it supports affordability, youth participation, and the long-term sustainability of our ICE facilities. Thomas and I are happy to answer any questions and receive feedback from council. Thank you.
Councillor Cadeau.
Thanks, Chair Grant. Through you to Marie or Thomas. First of all, thank you for doing the work and negotiating this with our user groups. I think it's an important first step. I've been a vocal critic of the 33.5% since I saw it, just because it's not consistent with what we're offering for soccer and baseball and some of the other minor sports. I'm not going to suggest any changes to this report or to the recommendations. I can get behind this because a 6% increase is substantial. There's no doubt about that. But it is something that I think we should continue to keep our eye on moving forward with, maybe a longer term goal of reducing that maybe 1% per year until we get down to the 30%. Those are just my comments.
Mayor Shantz.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. I'm just skimming through because I can't remember everything, but I think you named the four groups. Did you also talk to the Sugar Kings?
Through you, Chair, to Mayor Shantz. Yes, the Elmira Sugar Kings were notified regarding that of the potential increase in ICE rate. However, they pay the prime rate for the ICE, so they would just be impacted by the percentage increase. There was no response back regarding if they were opposed or in favor of any change.
Thank you.
Councillor Schmidt.
Thanks, and I'm going to echo Councillor Cadeau's comments. I'm glad the conversations happened between staff and the user groups to come up with something that works for both sides. I hear the comments about 33.5% subsidy. Should we look at that going forward? I don't know about that, but I do know that Mr. Brenneman's been deeply involved in RCS lately, and there's changes that have happened there. Is this an opportunity over the next year or two to work more closely with the user groups and see what kind of pricing and support both sides can offer each other? It's a two-way street. We help them out, but definitely the associations help our communities out by providing programming for our kids. So can we get more creative on how we help each other out to both of our benefits, while respecting that we need to get as much cost recovery as possible over the next few years?
Ms. Malcolm?
Yep, through you, Chair, to Councillor Schmidt. Yeah, we had a very good meeting with the affiliated groups regarding constant communication, regarding how we can work together, and just hearing both perspectives of supporting youth engagement as well as how the rising costs are impacting us as a department and township as well.
Thank you. Is there any other questions, Council? Seeing none, we have an unregistered delegation request this evening from the Woolwich Wild Girls Minor Hockey Association. In order to hear from them, we would have to pass a motion for the unregistered delegation to speak for 5 minutes. Do I have a mover, Councillor Schmidt, and a seconder, Councillor Bryant? All those in favor? That's carried, please. So we have Marianne, Cooney, and Kevin Schmidt here to delegate. You can come to the podium and begin when you're ready.
Well, thank you very much. This is my first time speaking or addressing council, and it is exciting for me. I hope it is, well, I'm sure it's old hat for most of you. My name is Marianne Cooney, and I am the current president of the Woolwich Wilds Girls Hockey Association. I'm new to this role, and it is very exciting for me. I am a firm believer in girls' sport. If any of you have daughters who play hockey, sport is an incredible way to build our daughters and our girls' self-esteem. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about the increase. I've heard we had a very constructive meeting, as was shared, and although we're able to handle the 6% increase, I just would like to remind council that we are a not-for-profit organization. All of the affiliated user groups are not-for-profit. Any increase in rates that we do receive will be passed on to our user group, our users. There's another number I'd like you to keep in mind when we mentioned the 33.5% affiliate rate. I'd like you to keep the number 19. 19% of the Woolwich Wild girls hockey are on some form of financial assistance right now. That's 1 in 5. Any increase impacts those families significantly. I understand council has a lot to deal with. There's a lot to juggle, and I don't envy the position that you're in. I just want to bring that number before you as you remember and as you discuss that increases of any sort do impact our players. Kevin is now here. He will be taking over for the rest of this. Is it possible to pause while he just comes up? The timer? I'm just looking at the timer. No? Pause. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to let Kevin take over, and he's going to finish for me. Thank you. Oh, you were locked in. There you go.
My apologies. I was at the arena evaluating a coach. Thought I had a little more time. Thank you for listening to us. Most of the people around this table, around the council, have been involved in minor hockey for many years. I know I've seen a lot of you, coached with you, have been involved with hockey. I have been president for the last 12 years of Woolwich Girls Minor Hockey. Marianne recently took over for me. So I've got a very vested interest in rates and ice costs. When I heard that it came back and there was a potential for an increased cost, the concern was there. As Marianne mentioned, we're having a much higher than we've ever had number of players that are requesting financial assistance, whether it be through us, through other sports groups. We're getting very close to 20%. I believe it's at 19 right now.
And with any increases, we know there's costs for everything. And it's all increasing, but we want to maintain our mission statement, which is to provide inclusivity and a place for all Woolwich girls to play minor hockey. And by increasing the fees a lot more than what we've agreed to with staff would be detrimental to the game. We're already losing a lot of players to other centers, mainly the city centers. So that's a big part of where we're losing. And our ice costs in relation, I know we gave staff a report compared to other surrounding centers is on the higher end, especially the larger centers, especially the center, Waterloo and Kitchener. The rebates are a lot higher and the discounts are a lot higher to those centers. And if we can keep this as low as possible, or even to what the agreed rate was when we did 3 years, we did a 3-year plan, which I believe it was 2 or 2.5%. That would be fantastic just to keep the programs going. Other than that, I just want to, reiterate how important it is to keep girls in sports. It's it becomes a very difficult thing once they hit about the age, once young ladies hit 13, because there's all sorts of other influencing factors. Not to say that the boys don't have that as well, but we want to make sure that they stay in sport, because sport keeps them active, keeps them in the community, and they give back. We're having teams right now that they're coming back and they're coaching the younger ages. This year, for the first time, we've got a U22A team, which is fantastic because it's something we've never had and it's still growing. We want to continue to grow the game and give these young ladies somewhere to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Council. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation. Is there a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Cadeau, seconded by Councillor Schmidt. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Next, we have Climate Action Sustainability Coordinator Anna Harrison here to present a report on the Community Climate Action Rebate Program.
Good evening, Chair Grant and members of council. As the chair mentioned, I'm here to discuss the Home Energy Assessment Rebate Program. If you recall, when I brought this forward to council at the September meeting, the direction that was received to staff from council was that the program wasn't accessible to Woolwich's lower income residents. Staff took this feedback and we've created a more equitable program that is in front of you tonight. Using the publicly available census data from Statistics Canada, we were able to identify a percentage of low-income households in Woolwich at the dissemination area level, which is the smallest standard geographic unit for census data. Staff are proposing to offer the Home Energy Assessment Rebate Program to 3 dissemination areas with percentages of low-income households over 20%. This allows us to target areas that have a higher occurrence of low-income households. Staff also increased the rebate amount from $200 to $500 per household, reducing the cost of the $600 REAP program to only $100 for these residents. Increasing the rebate amount did reduce the amount of available rebates from 50 to 20 households, but staff felt that reducing the cost was important as this can be prohibitive. If the program is approved, a list of addresses within these 3 dissemination areas will be provided to REAP, and they will ensure that the program is administered to these households only. I will also do some targeted outreach to these households to ensure that they are aware of the program. I am happy to answer any questions or receive any feedback from council.
Is there any questions? Councillor Bryant.
Thank you. Through you to Anna. Are all these low-income areas rural? They look like they're very much rural areas on this map. Am I reading that correctly?
No, this is all of the township. In the corner there, you see the Elmira map. It's just zoomed in, so that one is the Elmira community there. It is both rural and urban areas.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Schwint.
Thanks. Looking at the map, I'm struggling in that we're subdividing groups arbitrarily that have no, doesn't obtain what we want to gain. So 21%, we're going to pick this postal code. Let's use that as an example. Within that group, the only people that are going to be able to apply and take use of that program are the ones that don't need the money. That's my fundamental issue with this program, in that whether it's $100 or $500 for a low-income group, it's the $5,000 to put it in the remedial actions that should be taken. That's the barrier. So to pay for a larger portion of an assessment to people who can already afford it because they're going ahead with it still doesn't work for me. So at this point, I can't support the program.
Councillor Burgess, did you have a? Yeah, I saw the hand go up before I called on Councillor Schmidt, so.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with what the first two comments here. I don't want to be subdividing here. And again, as Councillor Brian said, it looks like it's a lot of rural farm areas. So it's covering most of it, not even the in-town area much. Just for clarity on another question I have here, we are subsidizing someone coming in and providing a report, but not subsidizing getting the product. Is that correct? And it talks a bit about you can look for other subsidies. Does this report actually help them get that? As in, do they need it to get a requirement to be able to apply? So, yeah.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Burgess. Yeah, so it's REAP administers the heat pump right sizing evaluation program, which is a whole home assessment. So it helps them to understand the energy needs of their home. And if they were to apply for a grant, then they have this information available. And there are specific programs that are available to eligible low-income households that REAP would then direct to these programs and help them kind of apply and then use the information that they got from the assessment for those programs, because it usually is a requirement, and not all of them, but for some of them it is a requirement to have an assessment prior to applying for the grants. So it's a good first step for a lot of people to understand what resources are available to them.
Any other questions, Council? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation. Is there a mover or a seconder for this item? Moved by Mayor Shantz, seconded by Councillor Cadeau. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? And that is defeated. Thank you. And our next item is sorry, Mayor Shantz.
So what happens next? This was a program that council had asked for, I believe. So we're just gonna drop it, or I think we asked to have it come back with some changes, which it was. Just curious where everybody wants to go with it. You just drop it?
Councillor Schwinn?
I guess I'm struggling with providing grants to the upper income percentage people, because they're the ones who are going to take advantage of it. So now, if you've got an extra $5,000 or $10,000 to spend on your house, and you get matching funds from the government, great, you're going to take advantage of it. But you can probably do it on your own, versus people who really need help for that. They're not going to get this money. So is there another way we can subsidize climate initiatives that are more income-based? Or maybe it's not income-based, maybe we have to look at spending our climate action fund in different ways.
If I may too, I believe as part of the action plan was that we provide community grants to the public. I don't know if we can necessarily dictate which members of the community apply for said grants. Mayor Shantz?
So, I mean, is the purpose to get people to to buy into the programs, or is the purpose to help people who can't afford it buy into the programs? Because, oftentimes I guess I heard on the radio the other day that EVs are dropping off because the subsidies are dropping off. So you can provide a small amount to someone, whether they're low income or not low income, that encourages them to take that step. So I guess with our climate action, do we want to encourage people, or do we want to subsidize people, I guess is maybe my question to council, because we seem to struggle with what we want to do. We've got a small amount of money, really. We've got some money there that we can use to create some initiatives. Yes. So.
Yeah. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, we do have a quarterly report. We'll have the Director of Finance, Colm Lynn, presenting the 2025 Q3, I believe it is. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair Grant, and through you to members of council. So this is the Q3 2025 financial report or quarterly report. This you may notice this is much later than we normally present the Q3 quarterly report. Normally, this is based on September 30th data. That's the end of Q3. So it's normally received by council, usually around the end of October or very early November. So it's December 16th now. So this is a lot later than usual. And that's primarily the result of all the work that we've been doing with budget and all the late budget meetings that we've deferred a number of items for this, but we do want to still let you know on how we're progressing on 2025 financial matters. The advantage of having this a little bit later than usual is now we've also had October statements and we've had November statements. So it was a bit of a scramble, but we made statements included in this report. And I'm happy to report that we've seen a number of improvements since the Q2 report that we reported previously. So previously, we were expecting a very large deficit in Q2 related primarily to winter control and the cost allocation in infrastructure services. That hasn't gone away, unfortunately. In fact, it's gotten a little bit worse because of the very harsh winter that we had in November and December, which is actually above our projections. So those projections have actually gotten worse, but there was a number of areas that we identified since the Q2 report that we were able to find some offsetting savings in revenue and in expenses. So because of Caitlin sitting beside me and a number of new finance staff as well, so we were able to work a little bit more closely with departments, knowing that they were projecting deficits, to do some cost containment and cost mitigation measures and work a little bit more closely to rein in their spending and also look at areas for potential improvements. And happily, we can report that there has been quite a number of improvements since the last report. So I'll just walk through some of those, some of the highlights in there, and I'll open it up to questions. So again, I think it's very relevant to report on winter control because it is relevant to the 2026 budget discussions. So this is a graph showing the 2019 to 2025 budget projections for winter control. You can see in most years we've been under budget or over budget, probably a better way to describe it, essentially running a deficit every year for the past 6 years. There was 2 very small exceptions in 2023 and 2024. But if council will remember, those were one of the mildest winters on record. So there were very mild winters. So I wouldn't consider those an average year. Probably somewhere in those other years would probably be closer to average. 2025 is much more severe. You'll remember January to March was extremely severe. And then also we're experiencing a very severe November and December. So we're currently projecting around $900,000 over budget in winter control. So that's why staff are recommending in the mayor, through the mayor's budget, an increase in winter control and winter control contingencies. So that is still a major concern for 2025. So it is probably the highest area that is negative variance that we're forecasting. But the positive side is there are a number of offsetting areas. So the 900,000 that we're projecting for winter control, there's also the labor and equipment cost allocations that are driving the deficit as well. So it's approximately $1.2 million in deficit spending. But in the IS department in particular, there was a number of cost reduction efforts based on kind of where they were projecting. And they found almost $500 or over $500,000 in savings in the infrastructure services budget, which went a long way to mitigate the winter control and the cost allocation overages that we were expecting. We also had additional revenue, which we previously reported to council related to 22 Church Street. So as of last year's budget, we weren't expecting to have that rental revenue. So that was essentially surplus rental revenue that we were expecting that we didn't plan for with the property purchase. We had salary gapping in a number of areas, which is essentially not hiring or not filling positions when they become vacant. The primary driver of this is the recreation director, and Recreation and Community Services has had that director is vacant since April of 2025, I believe. Investment revenue, so through Caitlin's work doing more cash management and more active management, as well as increasing our cash balances compared to last year. Even though our interest rates have declined, our cash balances are actually higher. So we are anticipating to have surplus investment revenue again this year, which will help offset that variance. Another area which is not necessarily good news, is we've been experiencing higher than normal tax arrears. So residents have had higher taxes, have more difficulty essentially paying their tax bills on time. So that results in surplus penalties and interest higher than we were expecting. We've seen that trending higher in recent years. And then in the planning department, there's been quite a number of new subdivision applications and planning fees. So the volume of planning applications has gone up substantially in 2025. So they were projecting about $200,000 in surplus income. So all that being said, when we add in all of that cost reduction efforts and savings and the additional revenue, we're actually projecting close to a surplus, actually a $50,000 surplus, a small surplus this year, which is quite a change from Q2 report where we were projecting a significant deficit. We were unaware of a lot of these cost mitigation numbers in the Q2 report, but in hindsight, with the benefit of the October report and the November report, we can report that we're projecting an operating surplus this year, which I think is very good news going into budget, because previously we were reporting a significant draw on our operating contingency, which we're hoping, if these numbers project, that we won't necessarily have to draw from our operating contingency for the deficit this year. This slide really goes through all of the savings that the Infrastructure Services Group found related to their budget. I won't go through those in a lot of detail, but there were a number of areas primarily related to operating external contracts, operating materials, and other savings and streetlights that the Infrastructure Services Group found to mitigate the winter control deficits. And just wanted to also touch on utility budgets. We're also having a good news story there. In Q2, we were projecting very significant both water and wastewater deficits. As council knows, we've done a much deeper dive into the water and wastewater budgets. We've convened a task force and a group looking at a number of different measures. This includes capital work with the sewer lining to reduce inflow and infiltration, but also looking at catch-up billings and making sure that we're catching up on any previous billings that were maybe not done. So this number includes quite a bit of catch-up billings, which may not fully address the deficit in future years. So this is kind of one-time revenue that we're paying off for some of the extra work. But again, it is a very good news story. So just so you're reading that correctly, we're still projecting a deficit in wastewater of 200,000. There are a number of potential factors that are still in dispute here. So maybe that number will decrease, but this is probably an accurate number, a small deficit in wastewater, but again, it's much lower than we were projecting earlier in the year. And on the water side, that's actually a surplus that we're projecting on the water side. It could be related to some of those catch-up billings, but we're thinking that the water budget is a lot better than what we were projecting earlier. But the wastewater is also much better than we were projecting. There was, I think, almost 800,000 in the Q2 report that we were projecting. So this is a much better story, and especially going into the 2026 budget deliberations, I think this is good news for council. Again, the benefit of having the Q3 report this late is we had much more up-to-date financial information that we didn't have previously in June. So with that, I'll just be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Council, is there any questions? Councillor Bryant.
Thank you. I know you sent us out a report earlier this week showing we had 2.5 million in outstanding taxes, and 56% of that is money we've already paid to the region, which is approximately 1.4 million, roughly. Is it legislated that we have to pay them before we get the money into our pockets ourselves? Because that's leaving us with limited cash flow when we're paying the region for money we don't have.
Through the chair to Councillor Bryant, it is part of legislation that we are essentially the tax collectors for the region. It is also true that they essentially collect 100% of taxes. And I can say that all municipalities in the region are seeing their tax arrears increase. So it does present cash flow issues, again, depending on the amount of arrears, where we don't necessarily collect the taxes, but we still need to remit that money to the region. And I think the estimate is broadly accurate. It's probably 1.5 million that we're floating essentially for the region until we collect those taxes. The offsetting thing, I just point out, is those penalties and interest that we receive, we keep 100% of those penalties and interest. So we don't remit, say, 56 or 60% of the penalties and interest to the region. So we do benefit from those late payments, but there is that timing cash flow issue. Yeah.
So if I may, is this legislated by the province or just something that the region has put in place? Province?
I'd have to check the specifics of the act, but I believe it's provincial. This is pretty consistent across the province as far as I'm aware.
Okay, unfortunate, but okay. Thank you.
Councillor Schwint, and then Councillor Cadeau.
A couple questions on the water, wastewater. How much do we have in catch-up billings? So I guess how much of that variance is a one-time windfall for us?
Through the chair to Councillor Schwint, we didn't want to recognize 100% of the catch-up billings. There are a number of different catch-ups, one in particular that's very high, so we didn't want to assume all of that revenue would be received, so we did kind of an estimate there, but I would say there's probably around 400,000 in catch-up billings related to that. Probably fair to say about I would say if we didn't have the catch-up billings, the deficit would probably be 400,000. That's probably a better way to say it. There's a deficit of 200,000. So if we didn't have those catch-up billings, we would still have a deficit of probably about 400,000.
Okay. That's helpful. And one more if I can. On the savings in infrastructure services, how much of that is, I guess, money that we're not spending on road maintenance that we're going to be spending next year instead, or the year after? We had the presentation last council meeting about the need to invest in our roads regularly. How much we're just, I guess, kicking down the road?
Mr. Pay?
Through you, Chair Grant, to Councillor Schwint. So a number of these savings come from contracts that have already ended or are not going to be initiated. Some of them from Loose Top, for example, if we've already done our gravel road resurfacing, we've done our dust suppressant. So that is the leftover essentially. What I think I would ask council to look at this is maybe not savings. This in a normal year would be money that would just get rolled back into the operating reserve. So I think that's important to know too. Why is hardtop have such a significant number to 325,000 is because we didn't do a surface treatment program this year. So there's significant monies there, which really going forward, we would be nice to have rolled into a reserve for roads, to your point. So that should be money that would carry forward. In this case, we're underfunded in the winter control area, and that's what we've tried to mitigate with the heavy winter that we had in this winter currently. So that's how we were able to do this. But, you know, I hesitate to say this is good news story, although there is a good news piece to this. Obviously, we're mitigating a deficit. It really is still showing an underfunding overall in the operating side of things. And this money should be new money put into the operating reserve for a future work plan is what this should be. But instead, we're mitigating a deficit with it.
Councillor Cadeau?
Councillor Schmidt certainly was on the same wavelength as me because I had the exact same question. I guess I'll just follow it up with, of the 325 for hardtop maintenance then, is it safe to assume that that isn't savings because of this? That's savings we would have seen regardless, or not savings, but money we wouldn't have spent regardless. It's not saving for this specifically.
To you, Chair Grant, to Councillor, correct.
Any other questions? I see a furrowed brow for Councillor Schwint.
I'm still trying to figure that one out. So did we do less hardtop maintenance this year than we planned to do or should have done?
Yeah, through you, Chair Grant, to Councillor Schwint. So appreciating the largest component of the 325 was the surface treatment program. That should have been held, like, because we didn't do surface treat, that should carry forward because it doesn't mean we don't need to do it in the future year, right? So it pick up, but some of these accounts are reactive accounts. So that's important to understand too, that just because it's in a budget year doesn't mean it should be spent every year. There are reactionary accounts in there. So I can't speak to all the specifics right at this very moment, but there are a number of accounts that exist that way that we need to show money's in the budget for the event that we need to utilize them. And if we don't, it should just simply roll over into an operating contingency going forward. So I think that's the best way to couch that.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Seeing none, this was just an item for your information, so we can move on to our next one. We have the sick leave financial analysis, and we have senior financial analyst Katie Stroud with us to present.
I'll kick us off, Chair Grant, and through you to council. We're presenting a sick leave financial analysis, and before I turn it over to Caitlin, I'll just remind council that this was a request from council during last year's budget process to look a little bit deeper at our current sick leave program. This analysis really focused on more of the financial piece. We didn't really look into policy, which would be more the purview of the HR department. But we did look at our existing policy with the aim to reduce the impact on our financial statements and our financial liability. So the recommendations in front of you include creating an employee future benefits reserve to fund it with a $200,000 transfer from the HR contingency. So council may be aware that we received $400,000 to one-time payments of roughly $200,000 each to an HR contingency reserve. So we're asking council to use $200,000 of that to fund some of that employee future benefits costs, that unfunded liability that we've noted in the financial statements. Another recommendation, to my earlier point, is to explore additional short-term options to reduce the impact on sick leave and to reduce the long-term sick leave program or liability. And that includes like an attendance management program and other policy-related changes. And that with the more longer-term view of reducing that financial and operating impact of employee absences, but that is more kind of outside the purview of this specific analysis, which was really just focused on the short-term disability, potential short-term disability, and the cost of our current sick leave program. And with that, I'll just turn it over to Caitlin to go through some of the financial analysis.
Thank you. So this report is broken down. It discusses the background section first. This relates to our existing policy and how the township currently handles people that leverage these paid sick leave plan. This report also provides some information about the current sick leave credit banks that township employees have. So as of July 24th, 2025, full-time employees, both unionized and non-unionized, have approximately 50,000 hours worth of banked sick time, which equates to, we've broken it down here by years, 27 years, and a potential salary cost associated with that. The reason that we wanted to dive further into this specifically was one, on the request of council, and two, on the financial statement impact. Currently, the township leverages TELUS Health to quantify the actuarial estimated liability of full-time employees accessing their sick leave credit banks. This specific actuarial estimate includes the time that a full-time employee would be on paid sick leave after their 18 days. So the TELUS Health estimate of the $254,000 that you'll see approximately on our 2024 financial statements only includes the period over 18 days and based on the estimates of the users that would use that portion. So TELUS Health looks at our entire credit system, the people that take advantage of it over 18 days, and then creates an estimate based on that cost or actual estimate of that cost. This report also includes some municipal comparators. As we can see from the table provided, we have some of our comparators that leverage a similar plan that we currently have, our paid sick leave plan. Some of them also reference a short-term disability plan. It is noted that of our comparators, none leverage both. They either have a fully funded paid sick leave plan or they have a short-term disability plan. Some did not provide specific details on whether they had a short-term disability or a paid sick leave, so it's assumed that those comparators leverage EI for the purposes of somebody who has to be on sick leave for an extended period of time. Through this report, we considered three options, which was to keep the self-funded plan as we currently have it, or with some changes made from HR through a policy change. We also considered offering a short-term disability plan, and then we also, as a third option, considered using EI top-up options. We have provided a qualitative and quantitative perspective on this. And so I just wanted to highlight the annual cost specifically within the three options. These costs only factor for those estimated employees that would require some type of plan to get to long-term disability, which would take into effect after 24 weeks. There are a variety of additional costs that would be considered, but that was outside of the scope of this report. This was really just to show how much it costs to get a certain number of employees to long-term disability. Also, I wanted to mention that for the short-term disability plan and the EI top-up, we did factor in for 100% salary paid because that's what we would see currently under our self-funded plan. I think those are the kind of the highlights that I was going to discuss. Is there anything, Colm, that else you would like to add? Okay, we're open to any questions.
Any questions from council? Councillor Cadeau?
Thanks, Chair Grant. Through you to Finance. Now, there's a pretty large liability, I think, for the township. So I'm trying to get a sense of kind of where that fits within the corporation. So I guess my question is there just a few people with a lot of sick days that they've accumulated, or is this something that's kind of corporation-wide where there's a whole bunch of people that have accumulated just a few sick days?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor. We've done some analysis to determine how many staff members would be eligible to be on an extended short-term plan to get to long-term disability. And so we have found that only approximately 25% of the current staff, full-time staff, would have enough banked hours to get to a long-term disability. And that would mean 840 hours of banked time. So you're really only looking at approximately 1 in 4 that would have a bank of that size.
And just to add to that comment, so it's fair to say that 25% would have over 800 hours and 75% would have under, and it's probably evenly distributed. For that remainder 75% will have very new employees, and then other employees that would get closer to that coverage.
Councillor Trudeau?
Somebody accumulates, many hours and they retire. What happens?
Through the chair, there's no payout right now, so this isn't a vested sick plan where we're obligated to pay out on retirement, which is why our sick leave actuarial liability is lower. It's really based on usage. So there is no payout required on retirement. They lose their sick time.
Any other questions, Council? Councillor Schmidt?
Thanks. I'm really glad that we're addressing this in terms of actuarially where we're at, so we can have some sort of reserve fund in place. That's step one. But to me, step two is how do we, look at the best plan for the township going forward? And that's kind of the next step I'm hoping council endorses, which is figuring out what best fits the needs of staff and the township. There's 3 options in the report, different costs. Right now, we seem to be at the highest level cost, but going cheaper doesn't necessarily mean we're meeting the needs of everybody, or maybe we are, and it is a cheaper way of doing it. So I'd like to see some sort of a next steps report come back to council Q2 or something like that, whatever is feasible, so we understand how to move forward.
Clerk Smith?
Through you, Madam Chair. I think the next steps with this, if council approves a recommendation here, are the recommendations in this report, which is to create that reserve fund that would sort of reduce the liability. And then the third item here is to review existing sick leave policies. And I think that's a project that the Human Resources Department is looking into. And that would be a good opportunity for council to see our sick leave program and look at the recommendations that HR wants to make to that.
Councillor Trudeau?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the question, Councillor Schwind. I was wondering the same. I guess for me, the biggest concern that I've seen is that there's unlimited carry forward of those sick days, which can result if 18 per year in a quite large bank that somebody could access if something happens. So I guess the policy, as we're reviewing that, I would like focus to be specifically placed on the unlimited carryover. And I don't know if council would agree with that or if I'm kind of out on a limb by myself here, but that's kind of what I see.
Councillor Schmidt?
It's a concern I share. I'm not convinced that that's where we start looking, because why rule anything out at this point? So I guess I wouldn't focus on anything. I'd focus on everything to have a widest range of options.
Clerk Smith?
And council, I can confirm that that is something that HR is looking into, but the carry forward, but also a full review of the policy. We're looking at several other programs that we'd like to bring in with the sick leave. So again, it's taking some time to do all that work thoroughly, but we'd like to bring that to you. If it's within the first half of next year, we can definitely commit to that time frame.
Thank you. Were there any other questions? Seeing none, there is a recommendation on the agenda here. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Burgess, seconded by Councillor Trudeau. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. This brings us to other business. I'll turn the floor to Mayor Shantz on the report on regional matters.
Thank you. Yes, I spent today at the region reviewing budget, and I'm happy to say that the 3 budget motions that I brought forward were all passed with 2 of them unanimously and the other one with a very high majority. So we will have a review of the traffic signals at Listowel Road and Arthur Street. And hopefully implemented changes. I gave them till March 2026. The message I got back is that shouldn't be a problem at all. It also includes looking at potentially lengthening the lanes further at the entrances and exits north and south on Sawmill and Arthur at the roundabout. And if not that, to come back with some kind of a solution to the backups that happen there. And I gave them till May 2026 on that. Also approved to begin in 2026 shave and pave from south to Church. And I know there's still some work and some underground work that needs to be done north of Church. And so that will be part of finishing up, sort of tidying up the loose ends on the EA for that. And also putting the bypass in the 10-year capital with unfunded at the moment until the completion of the EA in 2026 and when they can put some more details around it. So I am very pleased with all 3 of those and with the support of my regional colleagues on that. So along with that, I had to leave before we were totally finished, so I'm not quite sure where the budget landed in the end. We were hovering on the regional portion below 5 when I left. And with the police budget will bring it slightly over 5, but I'm not sure how that affects us, being some of the pieces are area rated as well. We'll find out soon.
Thank you very much. It's good news to hear. I will call on Councillor Schmidt and then Councillor Burgess.
I just want to say that I don't think we can overstate how good a news this is and how it shows that when we as a council, we as a township and a community do speak up on an issue and push hard, we do get heard. So councillors from the ward went to the public meeting, got comments, spoke at the active transportation meeting at the region last week. I think definitely I heard a difference in tone from the planners at the region after that one. Mayor Shantz spoke today, lobbied her regional counterparts to provide the answer to Arthur Street that we as a township wanted. So that's a huge good news story for us, and I applaud everybody for the work they did.
Councillor Burgess.
Thank you, through you. It's basically going to say the same thing, but just great work, Mayor Shantz, representing our community and yeah, getting our interest protected and the solution we wanted done and completed.
Councillor
It was a team effort.
Thank you, and I just want to recognize Councillor Schmidt as well. You were instrumental in a lot of this, kind of doing a lot behind the scenes and maybe didn't get that recognition. So I just want to say thank you to you as well. To Councillor Burgess, you definitely did a lot of work bringing that motion forward, which got that traction going. And of course, Mayor Shantz for bringing it forward. So very much a team effort. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you. All right. Is there any council reports or updates? Seeing none, we have anything for the outstanding activity list. Seeing none, items pulled from the information package, there's none, as well as none for the public notices. This brings us to the end of our meeting. On behalf of council, we thank all those who watched or participated both here and at home tonight. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? Yep.
Can I just ask one question of the mayor? Sorry, it's related to the Arthur Street reconstruction. Can you confirm that means no bike lanes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Confirmed, no bike lanes.
Is that, no? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Schwinn. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. On behalf of council, we'd like to thank all those who watched or participated both here or at home tonight. The meeting adjourns and we will meet in regular session in the new year, in January 20th, 2026.